Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for the premiere of Trust on FX. Alright, so this is an interesting series, this one. So I've been really busy with all these things. First I had Walking Dead last night, and then The Terror, which I also saw last night, a little bit advanced episode viewing there. But yeah, so The Trust, I got a chance to see that now. And yeah, I don't know. I wasn't blown away by it the same way I was with The Terror, for example. I really liked that, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't really have high expectations for this either. I wasn't really, really looking forward to it because, I didn't hear about it right away either, so that kind of impacted that as well. That I didn't really know about it until like about a week ago, and then, then I kind of put it on my radar a little bit and planned to see it and everything like that. But yeah, so obviously it's based on the same story about the John Paul Getty III kidnapping in 1970s, and that's the new movie All the Money in the World that was released last year, or the end of last year. Is obviously based around the same story, right? So the movie, and now they're having a show about it. So I wonder actually how that all went, like if they purposely did it so that there was going to be a show right after the movie came out, or maybe they didn't even know about each other until like they were going to release. I don't exactly know how this all worked out. This is very rare that you have like a show and a movie come out in the span of like 6 months about the same exact story. But it looks like the TV show, at least for now, is taking a different approach. The All the Money in the World. I haven't seen that movie, by the way. But just hearing about reviews and just descriptions of the movie, it sounds like that story is taking a little bit different approach than the show is. The show is kind of more focusing on Paul Getty, the main the grandfather in this case, and the grandson, and that one is focusing a little bit more on the grandson's mom as well, played by Michelle Williams in All the Money in the World in the movie. So yeah, we'll have to see. Maybe it will shift to that. Maybe it will. But yeah, I would like to see them take a different approach at least. So it's a little bit different. Now, I don't know how far this is going to go. That's my one worry with this show, is how are you going to go from this season? I don't think you can really go any further unless you make it like an anthology, series where like Fargo, where you have a different, story every season. That could work. But outside of that, I just don't really see this, going past the season 1. But anyways, for what it is, obviously it can be very good. So yeah. So anyways, just going to go over a quick little recap here, and it might get confusing with the names because everyone is named Paul. All the characters are named Paul, the main characters, maybe except like the butler, Baltimore, I think, or Bellamore, his name is. So that guy is different, but they're pretty much all Pauls, and obviously, that's the, whole point behind it. But yeah, so I'll go over a recap, and then, share some of my more overall thoughts, a rating, favorite character, and typical stuff like that at the end. So, anyways, and it will contain some spoilers here within the recap, by the way. So, if you haven't seen it, definitely go see it, and then come back right away and tune into this review as well. So yeah, so we start out, we see a party taking place at a big mansion. I thought this opening was actually very cool. Just like the colors and the, everything just kind of popped on the screen. They really got the image of the party and the times and all that, right away, right for us, there with the costumes and the whole environment, of the show looked really great there. So that was a good open there. I really liked that. But unfortunately, this is actually kind of a serious scene, because then they, kind of fast forward to a guy in a garage, and he actually locks himself in the garage, and he's on drugs or alcohol or something. He's under the influence, and he ends up grabbing a pitchfork sort of thing used for like gardening, and he kills himself with it in the garage in front of a bunch of like the women who are like banging on the glass, telling him not to do it or whatever. So that we see that, and it's like, what does this mean? It's a little confusing right now. That's how it kind of opens up. So we see Paul Getty, who is like, Yeah, like honestly, they're all named Paul Getty, right? But this guy, I guess, is like the senior. So Paul Getty Senior, the oldest guy, the kind of the head of the company of the Getty family. So he wakes up and we kind of see his morning routine. We see this Bellamore guy that his basically a servant, I would say, but maybe a butler. Helps him, get ready in the morning and all that. So we know that he's rich, right? We know that he's rich, and then we also see that he has multiple women in his life as well. They're sitting at the breakfast table there, and he's talking to these women and stuff like that. So that was interesting. And there's a little bit mention of King Lear and Shakespeare or something like that, which I thought was kind of cool. Because I wonder if that's actually going to play out more. I wonder if they're actually going to come back to that. Because you kind of see that story coming out a little bit, right? With the story of King Lear. If you don't really know it, they do explain it in the show though. They do explain exactly what he's talking about. So yeah, but I think that concept could come back later. It might be interesting if they do, but I think it was just kind of a conversation piece at the time. So then we see Paul speaks at George's funeral. So George is the guy in the garage who kills himself. And he says, speaking as his beloved father. So now we know that was his kid. I didn't know that at first. I didn't really get that from what was going on. But yeah, so at the funeral, then it's confirmed that is his kid. George is his son. So then we see Paul is visibly like really upset about the death. And he's kind of mad at him a little bit. He's angry at him for being on drugs and whatever, and not letting affect his life, and ends up being his demise, right? He commits suicide because of that, because of his addiction. So yeah, so we see him, really upset, and then he starts comparing his family to the Kennedys and other wealthy or the other wealthiest families, in North America, and I guess they're in England right now, right? They're in England. So yeah, so he's kind of comparing them, his to them, and saying how did they make it through or whatever, how did they deal with these things, and he's really mad about his children not sort of like honoring him properly, right? And kind of wasting his money, wasting the name. They're kind of just drug addicts and whatever, and they're not really amounting to anything. So he's obviously frustrated with that, and one of his women, or one of his girlfriends, I guess, kind of comforts him in that moment. But so we also obviously see that he's pretty angry at all his kids right now, and he's kind of using George as an example for all of them, really. So we see the grandson arrives at the I don't want to call it an after party because they're not celebrating his death, but sort of the gathering of the family afterwards back at the Getty house or the mansion or whatever. So this grandson arrives in jeans and a jean jacket, which is pretty funny. Right, he just comes in, everyone's in a suit, everyone's, higher class and whatever, and then this guy just walks in, so that was kind of funny. And we find out he's George's nephew. So George would be his uncle, in this regard, and, he just, like, arrives late, whatever. It doesn't look like he belongs at all, right? He doesn't look like he belongs in this gathering with all the other people. And, his father is the one who tries talking to, Paul. Yeah, so his father is also named Paul. They're all named Paul. Pretty frustrating actually. As I'm gonna go through this, but anyways, so it's his father, the grandson's father, Paul, who talks to Paul about replacing George's role in the business. So George had a pretty big role as his son, and he was probably like his next in line, pretty much, right? His like right hand guy. And so now that he's dead, that role kind of needs to be filled again. So this Paul, his son, wants to do what George did, pretty much. And he's been encouraged by his wife here as well, right? We got to take that into consideration as well. So then his grandson decides to stay a few days in the house. And then we see him pretty early on. We know what he's all about. He takes this trophy that belonged to his grandpa, and obviously to pawn it off for money or something like that. But the servant or the butler, I shouldn't say servant, but the butler, Bellamore, takes it back, but he promises not to tell him. He says, Mr. Getty's kids are already, bad enough for him. He doesn't need to, know that the grandsons are stealing stuff from him, right? So yeah, so we kind of get this impression that the grandson is really only there to get money, and he's kind of playing a role here in order to get what he wants. So he's not really there just to see his grandpa, you know. So then we see the grandson, and this comes further, right? He starts charming Paul a little bit, Paul Sr., I should say, with, you know, he's looking at these building plans or something like that. And so the grandson, you know, brings up some things and talks to him in a certain way, you know, a way that he, you know, he brings up, you know, topics that he's interested in and all that. So he's charming him, right? And Paul's kind of falling for it, right? He's starting to like him a little bit. Just in this scene, that was one thing. I felt like this went just like way too fast because it seemed like this was like one of the first times that they've seen each other in a long time. This grandson and grandpa, and all of a sudden, like Paul Sr. is just like, yeah, you know, like hey, you're my best grandson now. So it was kind of a little bit quick. I felt like it was a little too fast, but anyways. So Paul Sr. Starts to like him. He actually takes him to an oil drilling rig, right, that he owns out in the water. So that then, you know, we kind of find out then how basically they make their money. The Getty family, you know, makes their money, how they're so rich. So he explains to his grandson the chain in which he makes his money with oil field investments and then hotel investments and all this. So he draws like this big chart that we see and like kind of explains how they get their money, how, you know, how they're so wealthy. And then he says he says he doesn't have to pay any taxes because the way it works is that the company runs at a loss, right? You know, so he's totally evading taxes, which just makes him richer and richer and richer. You know, obviously, and you know, and typical, right? I mean, how else do these, you know, families get, you know, more rich and by the day, right? They don't pay taxes and they evade, you know, certain penalties and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty, you know, obvious that they would do something like that. But yeah, so we do know that oil is heavily what they've made their profit on, right? So then his grandson finally asked for the money, right? You know, what he came for. He asks for it finally and kind of spits it out, you know, per se, to Paul Sr. And he asks for $6,000, which to the Getty family is probably like about a penny, I would say. Like that would be nothing for Paul Sr. to give him. But instead he tells him so the grandson then tells him that he got into some trouble in Rome and has developed some debt. That's why he needs the $6,000. So, I mean, at this point, you know, if Paul Sr. was actually, you know, a loving grandfather who, you know, really cared and was just willing to give up his money, he would have probably paid him, right? Because, it's, you know, it's a legitimate thing. He needs the money or whatever. But then later on, then we see them back at the pool. And it was a little weird, like, that Paul Sr.'s girlfriends were, like, hitting on him. And the kid is supposed to only be 16 years old. I just felt like that was, like, a little weird at times. I don't know. Like, that just, I don't know. Maybe in 1970s it wasn't, like, that weird. But obviously now, like, that'd be pretty, like, messed up, right? So, because all these girlfriends are, like, I would say at least 30, right? One of them is, like, pretty young compared to the other three. But, yeah, definitely, like, over 30 still, I would say. Maybe 25-ish. But anyways, that was just a little weird. But then they're back in the pool, and Paul Sr. tells him that he must work at the oil rig for 6 months in order to get his money. So Paul's not stupid, right? He's not gonna he let him charm him a little bit, but he's not gonna fall into that. He's not just gonna give him $6,000 and you know, and let him do whatever he wants with it, right? He's gonna make him work. So then we see though that the grandson, he has these plans, right? He has a hidden agenda here. So he calls these two girls on the phone and he tells them what's happening, you know, how he's trying to get the money and how he's going to get it, you know, and how he thinks that Paul's going to write him a check or whatever. And then we also get the idea that they're in danger from a man. He names the guy, I think, like Brucetti or something like that, or Brutetti, something like that. Anyways, it ended in like Teddy or something like that. But yeah, so they're basically in danger from this guy. And so, you know, the grandson tells them that, you know, he'll get the money to pay them off. They don't have to worry about it, so that they can finally leave. Once they pay him off, they can leave. They can live their lives. And then we see one of the girls is listening in on the conversation. So I'm not sure if that's like also like a girl he knows, or maybe that's a girl who's, you know, with this other guy that's kind of, you know, listening in, you know, eavesdropping or whatever. I don't know exactly what was meant there, but obviously we have two girls there, not just one, and he, you know, specifically refers to taking the one, you know, away and you know, living their lives. So I don't know, we'll have to see where that goes. But yeah, so basically he's talking about his plan. He tells them what's going on. So then we see Paul Sr. throws a party to welcome his new friend. He calls her Teresa. So I don't know. This is kind of funny actually. So of course we all think that she's a girlfriend, right? We all think that she's a new young woman for him. And even at the point, I think Bellamore says, he's like, oh, she's African or something like that. And the whole time they're talking about a lion. so they have this big party, and then he goes to introduce all his girlfriends to a lion. So it's kind of funny that everyone was expecting this woman to come, but no, it's a freaking lion, man. So he buys a lion as a pet, I guess. And yeah, so that was kind of a funny little moment there. So then they're back at the dinner table. And Paul, so that's Paul Sr.'s son, and the dad of John Paul Getty the third, I guess I'll call him John, I guess. So Paul tries to convince Paul Sr. that he deserves the job once again. He's really pushing for this, and his wife is really encouraging him, right? She's telling him to do it. So he's basically pleading his case, telling him that he deserves the job, and then Paul Sr. just totally flip-flops, and you see his real personality come out here. That he's developed such a hatred for his son, or his sons in general, I guess, or his family, for all the stuff that they've been through and all the, addictions and all this stuff that they're, not helping him out. So he just totally flip-flops on him and tells him that his son is, in fact, aka the grandson, is, in fact, taking on George's role in the company instead of him. So, that's a pretty big reveal. And obviously he's only met this grandkid like 2 days. So, obviously he's kind of just doing it in spite, to get back at his son there. Which, is a little bit dirty, it's a little bit, and he does it in front of everybody, right, to kind of embarrass him even more. So yeah, definitely you see that kind of, that kind of evil personality within Paul Sr., I guess. So then everybody gives a toast to John Paul Getty III. They all say, which is his grandson, and yeah, so this guy's just named apparently the next best guy, the second hand, and the eventual leader of the Getty family oil, company in the business. So, after meeting the guy for 2 days. So, obviously we know that it was kind of just an act of spite, right? He doesn't actually, I don't think he really wants this guy to be his, next best, his next guy. But anyway, so Paul, which, his son, is enraged by this, right? And so he shows Paul Sr. pictures of his son, of the grandson. I think it was in a porn magazine. I think so, and the pictures depicted him doing cocaine and alcohol and stuff, and him naked in the magazine. So, and obviously, he has this magazine that he wants to show, but his wife, tells him, or John Paul Getty III's mom tells him, not to do it. That's we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't tell him and whatever. But Paul is just enraged by this, right? That Paul Sr. has chosen his son. So he just exposes him, right? He gets it out to basically convince him not to choose him, right? To basically change his mind otherwise, so that he doesn't pick his grandson, who's basically just as bad as him when it comes to addictions and all that stuff. And obviously he's only 16, so that's a pretty bad way to to start your life that young. You know what I mean? So probably only gets worse from there. So yeah, so that was interesting, and of course Paul Sr.'s just shook by this, right? He thought his grandson was a model guy and everything like that, and now his total opinion of him has just completely changed, and now he's just as angry at this grandson as he is with his own son here in that scene. So yeah, really quick change there within the matter of minutes. So then we see, I don't know, these parts were kind of weird, but anyways, it was interesting. But Paul has this doctor inject, but basically Viagra, pretty much, right? I guess they didn't have it back then, well, obviously they didn't call it Viagra, but it's basically the same drug. So he has this doctor basically administer Viagra for him, and so he has this has this sexual thing with his one girlfriend or whatever. I don't know. It's just kind of weird. I didn't really see the point in it so far. He had like 2 of those, sexual scenes, and it was like, all right. I mean, okay, I get it. Like, the guy has like 4 girlfriends, and he picks one to have sex with him that night. Like, I get it, right? I don't think we really need to see more than that. But anyways, so then the grandson is given a reservation for a plane ticket back to Rome. So this is like the ultimate, like, pretty much like screw off and leave me alone. Pretty much, right, from Paul Sr., from his grandpa. That's pretty much what, what's being said here. And yeah, so Paul Sr.'s obviously changed his mind completely after seeing the magazines and all this stuff. So then grandson tells Bellamore what has really happened, and that he owes money to the mafia in Rome. He says that he may owe, or it might be the mafia in Rome that he owes the money to. So that's a pretty serious thing, right? If you're owing the mafia money, probably, bad things are going to happen. You don't want to, be in debt to them. So yeah, and he's just really disappointed that he can't even get $6,000 from his grandfather. That he comes here and he does these things, and he can't even get the money from his grandfather. Really upset about that, obviously. Because he needs this money, or he's going to be in real danger. And then Bellamore, tells him that, I'm thinking Harry Potter here. Bellamore tells him John tells Bellamore that he never wanted to be a Getty, and he never wanted to be a part of this family. He was kind of just thrown into it, and he's never wanted to be in the spotlight sort of thing, right? He doesn't want this kind of life for himself. And Bellamore tells him, then, okay, well, if you don't want to do it, just leave and never come back, right? If you don't want to be a part of this, leave right now, right? Take this ticket and get out of here. And we kind of see a little bit of that, like, when Bellamore says that, like, he's really kind of emotional, so maybe he feels the same way. Maybe he doesn't even want to be with his family anymore. He wants to get out himself, too, but he knows he can't. So maybe, we may see that a little bit play out as well. With Bellamore, so that we'll see how that develops for sure. But yeah, so basically he leaves. Then John leaves and presumably never comes back, right? Like, he doesn't want to come back after that. So then we see 1 week later. This is the very end of the episode here, and John is back in Rome, right? The grandson's back in Rome, and he's dancing and celebrating, that he's finally escaped or whatever. Which, I don't know, like, yeah, he escaped, but I feel like he's always going to be a Getty. Like, that's his last name. I don't think he can ever really escape that by just leaving and not seeing his family again. But we'll see. I don't know. But anyways, he's celebrating because he's gotten away now in a club, and he's, really happy and all that. But then a man begins to follow him. And, this guy, obviously is, pretty creepy. He looks like a bad dude. So then he's, like, walking around the town, kind of, and he's, like, slowly walking away from this guy. And I didn't really understand why he didn't run from him, but anyways, so he kind of just walks away from this guy, and he's just kind of finds himself in the town square in front of this fountain, and then there's two men in the car, the one we saw before, pull up behind him a little bit, later in this scene, and they give the bag to him or whatever, and they talk, like, really, really briefly, and he's like, all right, it's time, like, or something like that, or like, we have to go, I think the one guy said. So then John puts a bag over his head, and they take him, presumably. And yeah, so I don't know, this was a little weird. I was a little confused at this point, because he's, like, kind of, like, consenting to being kidnapped or something. I don't know. This was, like, a little confusing to me, but obviously leaving a little bit of a cliffhanger here. And then we see at the very end, we see him running in the cornfield again, which is exactly how the episode started. So, really bringing it full circle here and coming back to it. So I wonder, will that come back later on, this whole cornfield? Will we actually find out what he's running from in that scene by the end of the season? Maybe, right? Maybe that's going to come back. I think that's going to be an important, little sequence to remember as we go forward. So, for sure, yeah. So that's kind of how the episode ends there. That he's presumably being kidnapped now by these men, and we'll have to see where he's taken, where he goes, who these men are, and all that in the next few episodes. So yeah. Anyways, so I'll just about do for the recap. Now I get to a little bit more of my overall thoughts, rating, and favorite character. Alright, so for a rating for this episode, this premiere or pilot of Trust, I'm going to give it a 4.2 out of 5. Honestly, yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit underwhelmed by this. Obviously, I think that the main thing, and FX really proved this to me with American Crime Story this season as well. They do such a good job with the set designs and just the colors. Like, everything on the screen just looks really good. Like, it just looks, like a lot of quality, stuff has been put into it, right? It just looks really, really good on screen. So that was very true for this as well. I felt like they really captured the moments, right? They had like dark scenes, when they were at the Getty Mansion, and then they had really bright scenes when he was in Rome and he was back there again, and the cornfield scene, like, it's really bright, and the party at the beginning too, that was like really bright and really colorful, a lot of like cool stuff going on. So yeah, they do a really good job with that. That was probably the biggest positive in this one. That's always great. I'm becoming to expect that from FX. But yeah, overall, I don't know. My expectations going in were like a little mixed, because I knew that, it was a little bit confusing with the movie just coming out, and now they're making a show out of it. So I wasn't sure exactly what to expect. But overall, I'd say it was decent. And the quality put in by FX and all this, the channel FX, all the work put into it, I think pushed it over, just being average or decent. I think that added to it, of course. So yeah, it kind of had a Dynasty feel for me, at least. They did that remake of Dynasty. They brought it back this year, with Elizabeth Gillies, and I did the review for the premiere, and I watched a few episodes into it, but I just kind of lost interest pretty quick. I'm just not really into those like soap opera kind of shows, but that's just me. But anyways, I think it had a real big Dynasty feel. Dynasty, sort of the same story, really rich family. There's some drama going on with the kids and the father, and they kind of fight back and forth. So I think it had that kind of feel, which, good. If you like that show, it's a good, positive. If you don't, probably, you're not going to like this as much. I thought there was great acting all around. Donald Sutherland being the star, really did a good job. I'll talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, he did a great job. The rest of the cast all did a good job. I feel like, what was Harrison Dickens, what played John Paul Getty III, the grandson, and I felt like he did a really, really great job in this one. So yeah, that was great. I did find it there to be a lot of dull scenes for a pilot. Usually in a pilot they kind of go all out. They put a lot of action and have a lot of stuff building and happening. I just felt like this was kind of just a really slow, really, really slow progression, to get to the end of this episode. And I don't know, I just felt myself like kind of checking the time, throughout this one, just, nothing really happening at times. But then towards the end of the episode, things really heated up, right? And leading up to that kidnap scene. So yeah, so that was good. The suspense was there at the end. But throughout the episode, it was kind of like, okay, we understand this, okay, let's get on with it, right? So that kind of feeling for me, personally. And I was just a little confused with the kidnapping scene. I thought it was a little anticlimactic. They kept referring to it, so we knew it was going to be big. And then he, puts the bag over his own head or something at the end. So that was a little weird. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. And maybe isn't even the kidnapping yet. I don't know. Maybe they're taking him somewhere where he's going to get kidnapped there. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, that scene was a little confusing there. And everybody is named Paul, so I thought I'd just, throw this in there. But yeah, it is a little bit confusing after a little time, goes by, because you're like, all right, this Paul, they're all named Paul. Well, because there's three of them, right? There's three John Paul Gettys. So yeah, but anyways, that's not really a positive or a negative. I just thought I'd, point that out. For after the episode, that was kind of my initial thoughts of like, why is everybody named Paul? You know what I mean? So anyways, yeah, just some humor there. But so the favorite character for this one is Paul Getty, or I guess the original Paul Getty, the senior, played by Donald Sutherland. So Donald Sutherland, he's really great, and I feel like he's doing an amazing job in this one. I think he's perfect for this role too. I think he looks the part. I think he really acts the part. I feel like he's going to be great in this role. And I think it kind of does depend on him, because I think he's obviously going to be a big character in this one. They've already set up some backstory and developing his character already in this episode 1. so I'll have to see where that character goes in the future. But so far, you know, he's kind of a likable guy. He's kind of a hateable guy, you know, with the way he acts towards his sons and all that. So, yeah, so I'll have to see where he goes. But Donald Sutherland, really, really great. He's had a great career, you know, in acting, Academy Award, you know, actor, and now he's coming to television. I think he may have been in television before, but this is, you know, I think most recently he's been in movies. So yeah, so now he's in television again, and yeah, I think he's doing a great job with this, and I think he's going to continue to as well. So yeah, for sure. But anyways, that'll just about do it for my review of the premiere. Yeah, overall, I thought it was decent. I thought it was maybe a little bit better than decent. But yeah, for sure, I really suggest, you know, checking this out still. Even though some of the things here I didn't quite like, maybe you will. I don't know. You know, it just all depends on, you know, if you're into this type of show, you're not. I'm probably gonna stick around for a few more episodes to see what's gonna happen here, and then I'll, you know, kind of see from there. But anyways, overall, yeah, really good, you know, premiere. Kind of sets things up well, for sure. So yeah, I really suggest it. But anyways, thank you so much for watching this review, and thank you so much for your support on the channel. Really appreciate it. Can't thank you enough. And I would really appreciate if you guys check out my new series, the pilot for that series, Let's Talk Television, it's called. It'll be a weekly series happening on Saturdays on the channel. So I really would like if you guys check that out. Just take a minute, check it out, see if you like it. Tell me what, you know, I can improve. Tell me some things you like. All that stuff. I'm really open to feedback. I want to make it as good as I can. So yeah, really appreciate if you guys go check that out as well. But anyways, again, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you next time in my next review.
Hold your head up.